Good morning, everyone. This is Luda Kopikina with GAI Insights, where we rate AI news every day, essential, important, and optional, saving you time and also identifying trends in this very high-moving domain and identifying use cases that can help you in looking at your projects and reducing risk. So today I have John, Tim, Adam, and Ankash, a tremendous crew, to do this rating for you. We'll start with the first article. Ankash, please.
Thanks, Luda. So the first one that we have for today is around generating worlds, and it comes from Word Labs. So they can create 3D worlds out of your pics.
It's really stunning, a stunning application where you could do a lot of things and move around. Adam, what did you think?
So I'm rating this optional. I'll explain a little more. It for someone that's just catching on to these capabilities, this is pretty cool and pretty amazing. So from a single image, it'll generate effectively a skybox or a 3D sphere around you with a little bit of a depth map, so you can move around right in the middle and sort of experience being in that environment. They also have some cool additional capabilities like adjusting the depth of field or the focal length of the lens. But for the most part, there's technology that's been out for probably close to a year now from a company called Blockade Labs that does effectively the majority of this. So it's really an incremental change in a very cool and rapidly growing space. But for our audience, it's probably optional news.
Okay, optional. John,
Yeah.
Tim, anything to add?
Yeah, if you're obviously in the video gaming world creation area, this is at least important, if not essential. It's early, so this is the first release. It's a product announcement, so I would agree optional. It's interesting, particularly, again, if you're in these worlds, because they have a couple of nice videos on workflows. So they show actual artists and how they use these things. It's quite remarkable. We're at, 2 years in at most since ChatGPT. And these people are using Midjourney and all sorts of other things completely integrated into their workflow. And then this gives them additional capabilities. So they have adopted this stuff in a hurry. And it is remarkable what you can do, in particular, the consistency of scene, the ability to move camera angles. It's technical in the sort of the world creation and video animation world, but pretty important stuff.
Yeah,
And
I'm
just amazing to watch, but probably optional.
I'm floored that we're rating this optional, right? Because remember in the early days when the news was that consistency of pictures and the like were the news, and now it's all like integrated in. It's done. It's amazing.
Yeah. The
John,
speed
optional?
is still what's so astonishing. This market is moving faster than any market I've ever seen.
Absolutely.
In terms of its advancement.
It's amazing.
Yeah, well, I think it's the AI's, enhancing the AI.
Yeah.
I'm reminded of a friend of mine, Paul, who was in the first Gulf War, and he used to do target planning. And one of the big challenges was how do you get 3D resolution, because they're trying to minimize, civilian casualties. Anyway, I was just thinking, I can't wait till we see what the robots do with this, and how you use it to create the space that you're gonna, in the case of the military, the battle space, or in the case of robot, the workspace. It's but option everyday miracles. Here we are.
Everyday miracles, optional it is. Okay, let's go next one.
Another time, I'll
Okay,
tell
the
you,
next-
a mutual friend of ours, Tim and I, who's now passed away, John Perry Barlow, actually wrote the song "I Need a Miracle Every Day." And I was in a bar one time at like 2 a.m, and he was trying to sell it to Kraft, and Betsy Holden and Kraft, who was the ex-CEO. Anyway, crazy night. Anyway.
Okay, well, let's go to the next one.
Okay,
Ankash,
the
please.
next one comes from Ben Thompson and Stretchery, and it talks about the GenAI bridge to the future.
Yeah, an interesting article. Tim, what do you think?
Interesting. I think optional for the general reader. If you want some background, it's okay. But as John probably knows, I'm a stickler about this stuff because I actually do know a lot about the history of computing. And this is somewhat accurate, but also, in my opinion, somewhat inaccurate.
Yeah.
So, in fact, in particular, the folks at Xerox PARC never wanted applications and never wanted any of this stuff. And they did not base their model on the mainframe. It had nothing to do with the mainframe. So they're right in general in that older technologies get absorbed by newer technologies. They don't go away, right? We still make phone calls, but they're not a primary means today of mediums of communication. They're secondary, but they don't go away. So that's right. And the picture of wearables and generative AI and gesture-based computing, I think, is probably broadly correct. But I think its history of computing and understanding of what an application is are incorrect. So I would rate it interesting but optional.
Let me be a little more aggressive. I would say definitely don't read it, because I think it sends you in the wrong direction. Tim and I know Alan Kay pretty well, and Alan, I think, to say he would vomit on this article he wouldn't even pay that much attention. The whole way of reasoning of essentially how do you make the garbage dump better, which is what Alan might say,
Right.
is completely wrongheaded. And the beauty of the stuff that came from Apple was a whole new paradigm, which had nothing to do with. He talks about how it plugs into the garbage dump, but it has nothing to do with the previous architectures.
Yeah, I would agree with you, John. I didn't like this article at all because it made so many wrong assumptions to come up with a wrong conclusion, or maybe the right conclusion, but
Yeah.
it doesn't matter.
I don't even like the starting point. It really at least should have started with the Memex.
Yeah, right.
But anyway, if you want to read a good book, you can read Mitch Kapor's book. I think it's called The Dream Machine.
Yeah.
That's a good book. Long, but good.
Yeah, about Licklider. Yeah.
Yeah, so optional it is.
Yep.
Do not read this one. Okay.
Just one thing I want to add. It confused me a bit because he has a photo of himself at the end there in those in the new headset there, the Meta headset. In the paragraph just before, though, he talks about how you have platforms like Oculus, which was deprecated by Meta years ago now. So like right there, he says standalone platforms like Oculus with its own operating system, app store, etc. And Oculus is long gone.
Yeah.
So I'm just even confused by some technical inaccuracies in it. It just, I would have also sort of loved a premise up front, as in what is he really trying to make in terms of a point. Anyway, everyone else got to throw it on the dog pile. I wanted my moment.
All right. Yeah. Can we have a fourth category? Warning: do not read.
Red.
Go back.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. Next one. It's optional. Do not read. Okay. The next one.
Okay, the next one comes from Quantum Black by McKinsey, and it talks about using AI for IT modernization.
Yeah, I gave it to myself. So yeah, it is a very interesting article. We discussed the software debt, where the Fortune 500s and large companies still run on outdated software, COBOL and the like, assembly in many cases, where they are very scared to touch it, legacy software, scared to touch it because there's not many people who understand what the software is actually doing inside. And so this is the article that talks about how AI can actually play in the sandbox and help. And Ankash, if you scroll down to before they start going into more detail, the discussion here is, instead of using AI to convert code into modern languages, think about restructuring and putting autonomous agents, right, to help you, so that it's then becomes much manageable code, or even
Thank you.
better, focus on scaling value and use multi-agent model and orchestrated and the like. So this is, I think, an interesting article. I was thinking maybe important. Between optional and important, I guess that would be my, but I think it's such a good topic that I ended up in important. What do you think?
I was more in the optional camp. I could be arm twisted into important. This this is an ad for Quantum Black at one level, right? This is a marketing piece because they even talk about their services here. It's okay. And, you know, speaking of garbage dumps, I mean, this is like, okay, give me a hazmat suit and some tools to clean up the garbage dump. Okay. You know, there are many other tools, though, in many other ways. For those of us who've been around for a while, it's the sort of, to me, the demeaning of the computer science industry as a craft that we are so afraid to touch this code, because, you know, we had to rewrite code all the time. And in fact, the main reason a lot of this code was so crappy is because nobody believed it would last that long. And then we piled more and more on top of it and made these incredibly brittle, fragile systems. But at the end of the day, as I like to say, computers are ones and zeros, okay? That's all they know. Turn that switch on, turn that switch off, and you can figure it out. It just takes time and effort. And there are many, many ways of doing it. Actually, one of the most clever I ever saw, which is an obvious thing to do, is keep replacing the functions, and as long as nobody notices, you know you have it right. And you don't really have to figure out what the old code is. You just have to make sure the outcomes work in the business process. So there are lots of ways to do this. I'm sure generative AI will help. I do believe it's a tremendous help because I have used it in coding. And one of the nicest things it can do is read the code and explain it to you. So that's great, especially if it's in some arbitrary language or there's just a lot of it. But it's not perfect, and it still requires some human intervention. But I think it'll be a good idea. But I don't think this is rocket science, and I think the idea of having lots of agents is great, but they never go into any detail on how that's actually going to work. So
Yeah.
it's
No,
optional.
Ankash, if you can scroll up at the end of the first section, there are 3 recommendations that they go more in detail. The 3 bullets right here, the 3 bullets.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
John, Adam.
Yeah, I was leaning more toward important. I think this is kind of a weak article on a really important topic. You know, I think
That's a good way to put it. Yep.
Yeah.
and
That's right.
and so I don't think they make any things that I think are wrong, but I'd give it an important something to look at. I am surprised that this hasn't gotten more attention from the big 4. You know, I'm friends with a bunch of folks, and this to me is where their money is to go back and refactor this stuff and data and so forth. And I hear you, Tim. There's not a lot new conceptually here and so forth, but you know, this is one of those things, kind of like, you know, in a certain sense, you don't need a web browser because you could have done it all with FTP and other, you know, file transfer. Yeah, and there's a certain simplicity or ease of access through generative AI to go at the old code and have it explain it to you and you know, in real time. I don't know. I was going to give it an important.
So
Yeah.
I'm okay with
the
important.
case for optional.
It's not the worst thing. I get a little bit of turned off because it's such an obvious marketing piece for Quantum Black, but it is an important topic. I wouldn't argue with that.
So
Yeah, and it is. See, the problem, the reason, John, that you haven't heard from the big 4 is because look at their recommendations. The only thing they can really do is, number 1, is modernize it, right? Because it's hard to do an army of agents, and it's hard to do process reengineering because you're sitting on a landmine as you're redoing it in different processes, because you're very likely to omit something and then it blows up in your face. So I think we haven't gotten to the number 2 and number 3. We looked at the operating system for agents yesterday. It's just the beginning to orchestrate it so you could do this in a coherent way. So it's an important topic, but this article doesn't advance it.
If I may, I want to make the case for keeping it optional. If you scroll to the very top, I think the premise from the beginning is misleading and disingenuous, and I'm not really comfortable supporting it. Literally in the title, they say, scroll up. They're starting to deliver breakthrough value, but only when you figure out how to build and orchestrate hundreds of them. That's not true at all.
Yeah, true enough.
And it's misleading, and it drives people to their product. I agree that legacy modernization is a massively important topic. We've had articles in previous weeks that we've called important and essential. It's an important or essential topic. It does touch on that, but its premise is that you need to scale these agent systems and orchestrate these massive things if you want to get your business value.
True.
I just don't agree
you
with
need
that.
to hire us because we have those hundreds of agents that know how to build.
Yeah, no, I guess I would agree
Okay.
with that. Sorry,
All right.
sorry, Luda, I'm leaving. I'm abandoning you.
Optional it is. Optional it is. I'm actually comfortable with optional. That's great. Thank you. Putting me in the right place here. Okay, great. Let's go on. Ankash, please.
Okay, the next one talks about how building LLMs might not be a brilliant business.
All right. Who do we have on that one?
You
John.
got me. Optional, optional, optional. This is, oh my God, this just makes me want to vomit. My second year at the spring of my first year at Harvard Business School, Mike Porter was teaching a course called Industry and Competitive Analysis. So his book on competitive strategy was just about to come out, and it lays out the 5 forces that are in this thing. And anyway, this is optional.
Okay. We are going optional. Tim, Adam.
Yeah, although we've been talking about this for a while, and I think the basic idea could be right, which I've talked about many times, which is this could be more like the airlines, as he likes to say, because of the difficulty of differentiation of these large language models.
Yes, I think this. Yeah, I would never put money into OpenAI. I think a standalone large language model is toast unless they get distribution and lock-in. Yeah. Somebody like Microsoft, they'll pay for all the investment just on software productivity, never mind the horizontality, right?
Yeah, I agree. But yeah, it's a pretty terrible article.
I actually was
one of these. Don't read this one.
I was disappointed.
Go back and read
Okay. Let's get Adam to say.
Sorry, I was disappointed towards the end. It says, so how are they raising so much money, right? What did they know that I don't? It is a mystery, but let's consider the options. And then they never even touch on AGI in this race to be the first one across the line, which is exactly why they're getting so much money.
Yeah.
So it just fell short.
Optional it is, but we've talked about it. The llama going sort of open was the commoditization of all these models creation, right?
Yeah.
So it's that's what's doing it.
But remember, on the other side, Apple figured out music. Okay, wasn't great for the artists necessarily, but Apple established an entire new business. I think that was a critical step on the way to them becoming the most valuable company in the world. Was they figured out how to sell things for $1 a song.
Yeah.
And so it's not that they can't make money. It's just that it's not. They can't make money directly on the LLM itself. Most likely, they've got to be in a larger ecosystem.
That's what would happen, and it's happening already. Okay, optional it is. Let's proceed. Ankash, next article.
Okay, the next one. Yes. So the next one is around Intellect One. So it's the first globally trained 10 billion parameter model, which has been trained in a decentralized manner. We have discussed this news earlier as well, but they have released a lot of technical details around this.
Adam, what do you think?
I think this is optional. It is super cool, and it is optional. It's effectively a research article. This is the first large-scale experiment where they trained a 10 billion parameter model around the world. They were on 5 countries, 3 different continents, and had over 100 H100 GPUs running simultaneously at some points. So it's very cool. It's an incredible experiment, and their model at 10 billion parameters is competitive, if not leading others in that 7 to 10 range. So it shows that they're getting good results as well. It's great. It's research on an edge that is probably optional for our listeners.
Yeah, but amazing technology, 96% utilization of resources. It's unbelievable, right?
Yeah.
And it's around the world. The orchestration of that is massive, and it's a very important effort. But I agree, optional. John, Tim, agree optional?
I was between optional and important, and the reason is because this is really important in the general sense to be aware of. So this is a little bit of a technical article just to be aware of an important idea, but I'm also willing to twist people's arms to read a little harder, because otherwise you're not, we keep saying things like the other shoes haven't dropped. There's just so much to be done here. So if you're counting on OpenAI and all of a sudden, somebody comes up with a model that they can train that's 10 times larger than OpenAI because they've enabled distributed training, that's pretty amazing and very important to be aware of again. So it's just reinforcing an important idea. So I don't think this particular version is super critical, but I would kind of give it an important just to say you need to shove this stuff in your face every once in a while to remember how early this market is and how radically it could change in a short period of time.
Yeah, I would support important because for all the reasons you just said, Tim. And if you think about, if you make a list of the potential disruptors that we can see, the known unknowns, I think this notion, and this butts up against all kinds of stuff, the price of NVIDIA, the creation of nuclear reactors for power, all these mega problems, right? There's that. And the other thing is that, the other thing I would put on this list is algorithmic innovation. If the liquid AI guys are right and they can scale linearly, not quadratically on, model training. So this to me is if you made a list of the 5 key uncertainties of the structure of this market in the near term, this would be on it for me. So I might even call it essential. Oh my God.
I'm struggling because I think it is, but I can be convinced. Adam, what do you think? I'm still on the optional.
I understand, John. You make some great points. Tim, you did as well. I feel this is too much on the technical side of how it was accomplished, and not enough about the point you're making.
Yeah.
That it
well, maybe we better write an article then.
Yeah.
That's the thing to do.
Works for me.
I think if you put this as important, it would just be that in the rationale we're real clear about what this does in terms of sort of some of the challenges that the market's currently butting against, to ensure that the importance of it is emphasized.
It is. I'm afraid people will get lost in the technical detail and lose the point that you're trying to make in this particular article. Yeah. So I would suggest
maybe we should find another one on this topic in the next week
if
or
that's
so.
okay for now, and find a different article to make this point.
Feel the power, Luda. Go for it.
Okay. Optional. All right. Let's go next. Ankash? I think you're on mute. Ankash?
Yes, sorry, I was speaking on mute. Yeah. So the next one comes from A16Z, and it talks about how AI opens new markets for vertical SaaS.
Yeah, this is I think article 2 of the series. And Tim, what did you think about this one?
I think it's interesting but optional, unless you're really interested in starting a SaaS company for a small business. So this is classic, although so rapid again, market progress. So you start with the enterprises that have a lot of money and have a lot on the line that can get some return, even if they have to spend quite a bit at an institutional level to get there. And then you go to SMB, small, medium businesses, where you cannot impose those kind of costs. But if you've lowered the cost of your infrastructure and software enough, you can make those people customers as well, and profitable customers. So this is going down to the next step, which is small businesses, very small businesses. And I can't remember what wins quadrant it was in, but it's the ones, in the bottom right that are the last to go. And saying, you could make SaaS markets for these folks, like dry cleaners was their poster child example. I'm like, you could, but when there is so much more money still at stake in the large enterprises and even the small SMB market, again, this is a VC, talking their book and saying, hey, we want to invest in some of these companies because we think we can make some money. Whether the companies can make some money is a different story, because it's potentially possible, but there's lots and lots of stories over the years of people trying to round up small businesses at scale and epically failing. It's very, very challenging in many ways. So
Okay.
I would give this an optional.
Optional. John,
Optional.
Adam, agree with optional?
Yes.
Yes. Adam, okay.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
I just want to pick up pace. I also found it very, the segments they're talking about, as we said, there's a very important segment of modernization of bad debt in software and a huge opportunity, right? So why would you go after cleaners? I don't know. Optional in my book. Okay, so next one, Ankash.
Okay. The last one comes from AWS and it talks about their newly enhanced Amazon Connect, which adds Gen AI, WhatsApp Business, and secure data collection.
Yes. John, what did you think? A lot of integrative tools
Yeah.
AWS?
Yeah, I was on the fence. I mean, Amazon Connect is used by so many people, really enhancing, your ability to very easily do customer segmentation, chatbots, integration with voice, and so forth. I thought it was important. It's kind of like it's not new to the world, but I think it's a clear continuous movement by AWS and Amazon to just continue to stick intelligence into their massive platform. So I was going to say important.
Tim?
Yeah, I can go along with that. But for the reasons John said, it's this is a big platform for call centers. If you have a call center or you're in the market for a call center, this is essential, because they have put an enormous. Again, the speed is just, as Paul would say, breathtaking. That they've integrated all this stuff. How good it is another question. I listened to this thing using their robot voice, which was not as good as many other robot voices I've heard. So Amazon still has some work to do across AI in general. And so you have to be, a little bit of a skeptic as to how good all this stuff is. But the breadth of services that they've integrated into a major call center platform made this important to me. Just the size of, they are such an important company. It's like when OpenAI announces something, we give it a little extra because they're the market leader. And these guys are the market leader. So
I also thought it was important, the connectivity and also the fact that they've put the segmentation tools at the
segmentation and analysis.
analysis.
The handling of PII and PCI is very important. So there's just lots of, it's kind of boring at one level, but really important if you're in this business.
I was even thinking, so many people are on Amazon and on their cloud, and these are the tools that enterprises really need, maybe even essential.
Ludo, I could support essential for what you're saying. I was thinking, even if you're not on Amazon, as you read the breadth of these capabilities, you can infer from it for whatever your platform might be that you're going to be able to either now or very soon have these capabilities. So it could still be very relevant.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was tickled by that. I was interested that they integrated WhatsApp. Right. So what that means is a lot of people around the world are on WhatsApp and not on other things. Right. So and it's always sits on the outside, and they made an effort to integrate it in. That's interesting and brings a lot of global traveling folks into the fold.
Market pressure, I'm sure. They do not want to hand money to Mark Zuckerberg, who is the one who owns WhatsApp. So Facebook owns WhatsApp.
Yeah. So interesting.
But I'm sure there's just that. I mean, my son travels around the world. We only use WhatsApp. You know,
Yeah,
if you're
exactly.
outside of the U.S., and also WhatsApp is completely encrypted end to end, so they have a very good privacy reputation. So yeah. Mhm.
Exactly.
Hey,
So they
Luda,
couldn't do
Luda,
what they did.
I have a hard stop. I'll see you guys tomorrow.
Okay,
Take
essential
care.
it is.
Oh,
Bye-bye.
Okay, thank you all very much. Great discussion, Tim. As always, great thanks. You add a lot of sparkle to our discussions.
lots of
Adam,
fun.
thank you. Always great. Ankaj, your voice to introduce the articles is wonderful. So thank you very much. We did well. Thanks. Pat on the back. See you tomorrow.
Bye.